Is Joy Harrington. I am your host. If you're watching the YouTube, you see I am back in my bedroom. We are back in Scottsdale just for a few days, basically unloading our trailer and repacking our suitcases and getting on an airplane to head out to continue our summer travels over the next couple of weeks. And it is so good to be home. I'm such a homebody. I'm such a routine person, and I love traveling and I love spending time somewhere else, especially in the summer, right? You do not want to be in Arizona in the summer. And there's just like no place like home. You sleep better in your bed. You get back to like all your creature comforts and everything being exactly how you want. And so even the kids were like so excited to be back in their beds. They slept in the next morning for like hours. And I was like, wow, this is just really nice. It's just really nice to have this quick break. And it's so good for me to break my routine because I'm definitely the type of person that can get stuck in my routine and then I become stagnant and unhappy. So it's like that delicate balance, of back and forth. Okay, we're talking about questions to create deeper connection with your kids right now. This is something that I've really been thinking about with my own children because we're getting a little bit older. And the first few years of parenthood, your kids are little, right? You're in caretaker mode. And the relationship is so automatic because they need you. They need you for everything. They adore you for everything. They don't have opinions of their own. They don't have a mind of their own. They don't think anything about what you say or do, except that they think it's awesome, right? They're your biggest fan. And so it's really easy with parenthood to just assume that that's how the relationship is going to stay, or at least assume that the relationship itself will be automatic because it's been so automatic for the first few years. But that's not true. And I know that's not true because a lot of us grew up with parents who were wonderful caretakers, totally devoted, did everything that they could. And yet, after the caretaking period ended, the relationship didn't develop further. There was not this intentional pursuit of us and who we were and showing interest in us and wanting to be our friend. It was they were the parent, they were the caretaker, but they never really became that friend. We never really developed that relationship with them. And so there's a generation of us, there's multiple generations of us that know what I'm talking about. So we get to do something different if we want to break that. And so I remind myself all the time, my relationship with my kids is the same as a marriage. It requires the same effort, the same intention if I want a relationship with them. It is not automatic. It is not something that's just a given because they're my child. And the better we can be about transitioning that with them as they grow, the better off we can be, I think, because you don't want to wait till they're adults and then try to start because they're going to be like, well, I've got 20 years, 18 years of something else. I don't know something else. And now this is different and this is weird. So obviously there's ages and stages and you got to be age appropriate for things. Something that I've always given my kids is age appropriate truth. I do not lie to them. I do not tell them something is not true if they ask me outright, but I do make sure it's age appropriate in how I convey that truth to them because I don't want to obviously traumatize them or give them something that they're not ready to hear, but I'm going to give them the truth. So keep that in mind. Even with these questions, what stage are you in? The first 4 to 5 years, you're probably not sitting down having these intentional questions that I'm giving you today. You will have different questions to ask them to have a relationship. The questions I'm giving you today are probably for a little bit older kids. My kids are 10 and 8. And I was riding in the car today with Scarlett. We were going to her orthodontist appointment, and it's a little bit of a drive. And so I thought to myself, hey, use this time to get to know her, pursue her. Don't assume that you know her just because you're her mom or because you've known her for 8 years, because we're always growing, we're always changing, and especially children are always changing as they continue to grow. So I gave her questions so that I could get to know her. And after a couple of questions, she's really smart. So she was like, Mom, what is this? And I was like, I just want to get to know you. So keep in mind, these are probably questions you can even use with your spouse. P.S. These are just great questions to use to create intimacy or relationship with anyone. And our kids are the most motivated to have a good relationship with us. Out of everyone on the planet, even your spouse, your children are the most motivated to have a good relationship with you. The relationship is not automatic, but they are the most motivated. So we want to pour into that. We want to cultivate that. We want to be parents that have amazing friendships with our kids because they are a built-in friend, but they're not promised to stay that friend if we don't nurture the relationship. So that's what today is all about. So question number 1, what is something you really want to do with me? I was like, hey, I'm just going to throw this out there and see, like, what's something that you really want to do with me? Maybe I haven't been doing it with you, right? And it wasn't like it has to be in this time or whatever. It was just an open-ended question. What's something you really want to do with me? Number 2, what is something you wish I understood about you? I think this is so important because we think we know our kids, but most of the time, the way they're presenting is not accurate of what's really going on inside of them. And then we make assumptions or we have projections about what's going on inside of them. And we assume that, but that's not probably accurate. And again, I know this from personal experience, right? I was definitely not understood. And I knew that, but I don't think my mom ever knew that, right? Because she just saw what I was presenting and took that at face value, probably because she was a really busy woman, right? She had 9 kids. She was doing a lot of things and didn't have the time to sit down and have these kinds of conversations. So what is something you wish I understood about you? Notice I'm not saying, is there something? Because when you ask your brain is there a question, it's really easy for people to be like, no. But if you ask them what is something, their brain will actually go to work to find something. And then their brain will actually come up with something. Your brain is lazy. It doesn't want to do work. So if you just say, is there, it's going to be like, nah, we're good. But if you say, what is there, then they're going to go to work. Your brain's going to go to work and it's going to find it and be like, oh, here's the answer. So that's number 2. Number 3, what is something I do that you don't like? Now, you're going to have a certain level of maturity to hear these answers because you cannot take it personally when they respond to you. This is about them. And if you start to take it personally, or you defend yourself, or you explain yourself, now you've just made the conversation about you and they will feel that and they will not open up to you again. Again, I know because we've all been there. We've been with that person that does that to us. So be in a place emotionally and mentally where you can be neutral and hear what they have to say in a way to get to know them and their perspective instead of hearing it as you're wrong, you're doing something wrong, you should be better. That's not what they're saying. They're sharing their experience, their perspective with you. Doesn't mean anything about you. It does show you a side of them that maybe you're not aware of. That's good. We want to know. We want to know if they're perceiving or experiencing us in a way we don't intend. We would like to change that because we want them to have a good experience of us. We want them to experience us from what we think we're presenting as. So come from a neutral place. Do not take this personally. Do not defend. Do not explain. Don't go there. Just listen. And then you can either mirror it back to them where you say back to them what you hear them saying. You can say, what I hear you saying is this. Or you can say, okay, yeah, thank you for telling me. And then ask your next question. Those are the 2 responses you really want to stick to for this. Number 4, what do you want me to do instead? So you ask them, what's something I do that you don't like? Now, what do you want me to do instead? You might be surprised at what they come up with. If they don't want to tell you, if they don't want to answer any of these, that's okay too. Do not push it. Scarlett got to a point where she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I just totally dropped it, totally left her alone because I'm not here to pry. I want to have a relationship. And that's what this is about. Number 5, what could I do better in our relationship? Again, having children and having a relationship with your children is very similar to a spouse. You're going to want feedback that's going to help you show up in a way that's going to cultivate a better relationship. And so these are questions you would probably really appreciate your spouse asking you. Be the person to ask these of your children and of your spouse and take the feedback for what it's worth, as in, doesn't mean anything about you, doesn't mean you're a failure, does not mean you're a bad person, does not mean you're a horrible parent. It just means that how they are perceiving you, how the communication is happening, is translating to them incorrectly. And then that does not mean that you are here to fix their translation. You're not here to say, well, you're translating wrong. So let me explain it to you so you can translate better. We all know how that feels when someone responds to us that way. Instead, your opportunity is to go, I'm so glad I see that. I'm so glad I know that. How do I want to do something different so that translation can change? Because get this, you want their heart. You want a relationship with them far more than you want to be right about your translation. And you get to remind yourself of that right now. You want a relationship with them. You want them to feel safe, seen, loved, heard, supported far more than you want to sit here and go, but I'm not wrong. I'm right. Why are you telling me that I sound this way or I do this? It's not wrong and you deserve it and all of the things. You're probably right. And you care more about a relationship with them. And you get to remind yourself of that right now when you hear these questions and you hear this feedback. And you get to choose to shift or change or try a different approach or do something. And I also understand that as parents, no matter how good of a job we do and the shifting that we do or the approach that we do, we're probably never going to be at a place where we are 100% being heard correctly in translation, and our kids are still going to have a story about us not being understanding or not whatever it is. That's okay too. We're not here to be perfect. We can't control everything, but we can always want to grow and always want to hear their perspective and try again. That's what they care about. They care about us wanting to try again. And we get to show them how they get to try again because they're going to do what we do. So there's your 5 questions. Try this out with your spouse if you want to. See how it goes. But remember to be in a good spot to hear and to not take things personally because it's not about you. I'll see you back on the show next week. Oh, P.S. If you're watching the YouTube, you can see this adorable little set I'm wearing. I showed it on my Instagram stories and I saved it to my August links highlight. I have highlights on my profile that have different links for different outfits or beauty products or things that I use that when I share them in a specific month, I save them to that specific month's links. I have tons of saved ones already from months before. You can go through them, check them out. But this is my new favorite. It's this adorable crop top, like nude, neutral color shorts suit. So it's shorts and a top. It's got one sleeve. It's an adorable crop top and it looks amazing with tan skin. You can see it on me. And you'll actually see, I have a video posting about it on my August links highlight on Instagram on my profile. It's so cute. And I saved the link for you because you need one. It's going to make you feel like a bombshell on these last few days of summer. So go get it. It's Amazon, so it's cheap and it's totally worth it. See you on the show next week.